woods. I will let you stay in my soft leaves. I will shield you as much as I can. And the little cedar tree scoops the birds up and put them way back in its leaves. And behind it, the bird heard a giant pine tree say, I will spread my limbs and I will cover the little cedar tree, and it will give you more cover, and you can stay warm. And then there was a little holly tree, and the little holly tree looked at the birds and said, look, I have berries. You can eat my berries this winter until your food comes around next spring. So the little birds slept in the leaves of the cedar tree all winter long. Now, old Jack Frost was watching this. And Jack Frost went to Mr. North Wind. And he said, Mr. North Wind, I have a problem with these trees. And this is what I see. I see your cold winds of winter blowing off all the leaves of the trees that wouldn't help the little birds. But for those green trees that help them, they will forever stay green. And that's why we have evergreen trees. This next story is as close as I'm going to come to one of my personal stories. Sometimes I get a little sentimental when I tell it, so if I get a little sentimental, y'all are welcome to too. My two sons, Josh and Kevin, and I, we grew up at a place we refer to as the end of the road, and we grew up together. As a single mom with two boys, I had a pretty rough time around Christmas and birthdays. And this one particular Christmas Eve, I was feeling pretty low because I didn't have a lot of presents under the trees. I couldn't get the things that my boys had asked Santa for. So I was laying in the floor in front of the wood stove listening to the fire crackle and looking out at the snow falling outside. The snow started getting deeper. It wasn't cold out, about 30 degrees, and big snowflakes falling, big and round as a quarter or $50. And I looked at Josh. I said, hey, Josh, how about let's go on out and playing in the snow? He said, Mom, are you crazy? It's dark out there. I said, oh, but the night lights will shine our way. I'll dress Kevin while you get dressed. Now, Kev was about 3 years old, and while I was putting his snowsuit on him, Josh was getting ready. We went outside, and I had two ropes. I tied around my waist, and then I tied it to the sled, and I set Kevin on it. And while I was doing that, Josh turned Yana loose. Yana was our big dog. She weighed over 100 pounds, and she ran on a leash. But she was so happy to get free. She was running in the snow, and she was wallowing, and I was pulling Kevin, and she was snapping at his fingers, and she was snapping at the sled, and she was snapping at Josh and up in his face, giving him kisses, and everybody was laughing and having fun. And I pulled Kevin all the way down to our neighbor's house. Verdi owned a huge farm, and our little piece of heaven was an acre that was cut right out of the middle of it. But he let us have full reign of the farm. So we went down under the night lights. And I told Kevin, I said, hey, Kev, bet you can't catch a snowflake with your mouth open. So he started running around trying to catch the snowflakes. And Joshua was doing the same thing. And we were walking and talking, turning around and wallowing in the snow with Yana. And the snow was getting deep, about 5 inches now. I said, how about making an angel? Well, they looked at me real strange, so I showed them how to make an angel with my arms going up and down and my legs going out and in. And then we started making families of angels. We made families of angels all over the field where Verdi grew his garden. And then I looked at Josh, and he was yawning, and I said, oh my gosh, I guess it's time for us to go home. Laid down Kevin on the sled, and he just went to sleep. We got back up to the house, and I undressed Kevin, put him in the bed, and Josh was getting dressed for bed, and I laid down in front of that sliding door again, listening to the stove crackle. Josh came in and he sat down beside me. He said, "Mom, I know you've been worried about Christmas. I know you've been worried that you couldn't buy us a lot of presents." And he said, "But Mom, you don't have to worry. Thank you for making this a magical Christmas Eve." And with that, he gave me a kiss and ran off to bed. I lay there on the floor and went to sleep. Woke up the next morning to a knock on the door. And it was Verdi. He brought us a Christmas gift. And he said, "Miss Adkins," that was my name at that time. He said, "I saw out in my field where the angels came to visit me last night. There must have been 50 of them." And he said, "Miss Adkins, I hope those angels come and visit me every year." And that was my magical Christmas gift. A long, long time ago in a village far away, there was an old shoemaker and his wife. The old shoemaker had worked hard all of his life, but he just couldn't seem to get ahead. And this particular Christmas, he didn't have money to buy food. All he had was enough leather for one pair of shoes. Well, he cut out those shoes and he laid them on his workbench, and he and his wife went to bed hungry. He said, "I don't have the energy to make them tonight. I'll do it first thing tomorrow." Well, the next day when he got up, he went into his workshop and he found the shoes were already made. And they were beautiful with brass laces. When he opened his store, there was already someone there. And they came in and wanted those shoes. That woman said those were the most beautiful shoes she had ever seen in her life. And she gave the old shoemaker 3 gold coins. Well, his wife went to the grocery store and filled the cupboards with those three coins. And the old shoemaker had enough left over to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. He cut those out and he left them on his workbench to do the next day. But when he got up the next day, the shoes were already made. And standing on his doorstep were 2 women wanting to buy a pair of shoes because they had seen the ones the woman bought yesterday. So the old shoemaker was doing pretty good now. He had enough money to buy leather for 3 pairs of shoes. But he thought something strange. He cut out those shoes and he left them on his workbench, and he told his wife, "How are these shoes being made? How can I just leave the shoes cut out on my workbench and then wake up and they're magically made?" So he and his wife decided to set up behind the curtain and watch what happened. As the clock struck midnight, boing, boing, 2 little elves came in. And they jumped up on his workbench and they started hammering and picking and lacing and working and singing. And it was no time until they had those shoes made. Well, that just pleased the old man and his wife so much. The next day he said, "These little elves, they've been so good to us. What can we do for them?" Well, his wife said, "I noticed they didn't have a coat on when they came in. And they didn't have anything over their little ears. I will make them a coat and I will make them a hood. And you can make them shoes." So the old shoemaker and his wife began working. And they made the little outfits and they left them on the workbench. And they set up to watch. Well, at 12 o'clock, when that clock struck again, boing, boing, 12 times it went. Those little elves came running in and right up on that workbench. But then they stopped in total surprise because there were no shoes cut out for them to make. There were only these little outfits. And they put those coats on, and they put those tiny little shoes on, and they put those hoods on, and they danced. They danced, and they jumped, and they sang, and they were just so happy. And then they were gone. Well, the old man and the woman, they lived happily ever after because his shoes became a worldwide phenomenon. They gave money to the community, and they gave to Santa and Christmas because they knew it was the magic of Christmas and the magic of Santa that sent those little elves to help him. Got 10 minutes? Okay. Once upon a time, there was a widow woman who lived over in the meadow with her 3 children. Now, most of the time, she would raise a garden through the summer, and she would sell vegetables at the farmer's market so she would have money to buy wood for heat. And then she would preserve the food so they would have something to eat all winter long. But this summer was not a good summer for vegetables. And it was getting way up in the fall, and she had no wood, and she had no food. She didn't know what she was going to do, but she had heard that pine cones made a really, really good fire. So she decided one night to take her basket out into the pine forest and pick up some pine cones. She was going to pick up a lot so she could burn some, and maybe she could take some down to the market and sell them to buy food. So she went out and she was digging through the snow looking for pine cones when she heard this, "What are you doing?" And she looked around, and she looked up, and she looked down, and she didn't see anything at all. Well, maybe it was just the wind. So she went on about picking up pine cones. "Why are you taking my pine cones?" Well, this time when she turned around, right in one of those pine trees was a little tiny wood elf. And he said, tell me, why are you taking my pine cones?" So she told him, "My children are cold and hungry. I need some pine cones for wood, and I need some to sell." And the little elf said, "Well, you need to go to the forest on over because their pine cones are much, much, much bigger and they burn much, much, much longer." And he was gone, just like a flash. So the woman decided to take his word for it, and she took her basket and started walking across the meadow to the next pine forest. It was getting darker. But when she got over there, it was the strangest sight. There were pine cones all over the snow. She didn't have to dig down into the snow to get them. She started picking up the pine cones and putting them in her basket. And before long, she had her basket full. She just knew she would have enough for a fire and enough to take into town to sell for groceries. So she made her way back to her house. And when she got inside her house where the light was on, she noticed that the pine cones were silver. She threw one into her fireplace and she lit it. And it cast the most beautiful flame. And it burned all night. And it was still burning the next day as if nothing had burned up about it. She knew that she could sell these pine cones down at the market. So she took off early to go down. And sure enough, she sold enough pine cones to buy groceries for the whole winter and to have some left over for next year. And also for a fire, to keep a fire all winter long from the silver pine cones. Now some people still believe that the silver pine cone brings magic at Christmas time. And they hang one on their tree or set one in their house every year. And for the little ones tonight, I have a silver pine cone. And I would like for them to come up, all the little ones, to come up and get a silver pine cone. Thank you. Just Some of them are not perfect. It's really hard to find pine cones this time of year.
Gwenda, I think storytelling is a true gift, and you have the gift of storytelling. We really thank you so much for being here. How long have you been doing storytelling? Is this something that you picked up just recently, or something that's been in your family and just passed down from generation to generation?
I always loved hearing my grandfather tell stories, and after my grandfather, my father. And through my work always, I have used storytelling to get points across. And stand and deliver lessons, as we extension agents often do, you have to have something to grasp attention. And if you can relate a story to an educational lesson, then people understand it and it will stay with them longer than if you just give them the paper and say, take this and read it. So storytelling has always been, I wrote a grant to the Kentucky Arts Council to go through an apprenticeship, and that was funded. So I worked with Master Storyteller Pam Holcomb from Harlan County for a year, and then I joined the Kentucky Storytelling Association as an awesome organization for the preservation of stories. You can look them up online at www.kystory.org and find out more information.
Thank you very much. Let's give Gwenda another hand. Very good. Well, let's invite the Appalachian Stompers back up on the stage. They're going to do another number for us before we take just a 10-minute intermission. We're going to go on and take that intermission now. That'll give our Appalachian Stompers time to set up their props. So, folks, this is what it's all about, how to fellowship with one another. So, if you haven't got a bag of popcorn, help yourself.